Mixed signals are one of the most psychologically exhausting things you can experience in a connection because they do not only confuse your heart, they confuse your sense of reality. One day the energy feels warm, intimate, undeniable. The next day it feels distant, flat, almost transactional. They lean in, then disappear. They say something that sounds emotionally real, then act like none of it meant much. They make you feel chosen, then leave you questioning whether you imagined the whole thing. That is why mixed signals are so hard to walk away from. A clean rejection hurts, but it gives you something solid to grieve. Mixed signals do not give you grief. They give you hope with splinters in it. Just enough closeness to keep you emotionally invested, but not enough consistency to let your nervous system rest. And when people stay trapped in this kind of dynamic, they usually keep asking the same question. What do the mixed signals mean? Do they care and are just scared? Are they confused? Are they avoidant? Are they testing me? Are they pulling away? Is this unfinished love, emotional immaturity, or simple lack of interest dressed up as chemistry? Today, I want to walk through what mixed signals usually mean, what people tend to get wrong about them, and why the answer is often simpler but also more painful than most people want it to be. Stay with me until the end, because the last part is the truth that usually sets people free. And it has much less to do with decoding them and much more to do with finally understanding what the pattern is doing to you. The first thing to understand is this: mixed signals usually do not mean mystery. They usually mean inconsistency. That sounds obvious, but when people are emotionally invested, they often give mixed signals a depth that they do not always deserve. They start treating inconsistency like a code that must have a hidden emotional explanation behind it. They assume that because the behavior is complicated to live through, it must also be complicated to interpret. But most of the time, mixed signals mean one very simple thing. The person is not relating to you in a clear, stable, emotionally integrated way. Now, the reason for that can vary. They may like you, but fear closeness. They may enjoy your presence, but not want responsibility. They may be lonely. They may be ambivalent. They may want attention without commitment. They may care in bursts, but not in a mature, sustained way. They may be genuinely conflicted. Or they may simply not like you enough to move clearly, while also not wanting to lose access to you. All of those are different motives, but they create the same emotional outcome for you: instability. And that is the part people often miss. They get so focused on what the other person feels that they stop asking what the pattern itself is producing. And mixed signals produce confusion, overthinking, emotional dependency, false hope, and an exhausting cycle of trying to emotionally survive on inconsistency. So before you ask what their mixed signals mean about them, start by noticing what the mixed signals are doing to you. A lot of people assume mixed signals must mean hidden feelings, that if someone keeps coming close and then pulling away, there must be something deep underneath it. And sometimes there is. Sometimes mixed signals do come from genuine internal conflict. A person may feel attached but not ready. They may feel drawn to you but scared of what closeness would require. They may want the bond but not know how to hold it without getting overwhelmed. But hidden feeling is not the same thing as healthy capacity. This is where people get lost. They think the presence of emotion changes the meaning of the pattern. They tell themselves that if the feelings are real, then the inconsistency is somehow more understandable, more romantic, more worth enduring. But the truth is, mixed signals hurt whether they come from indifference, fear, immaturity, selfishness, unresolved attachment wounds, or emotional conflict. Your nervous system does not relax just because there is a poetic explanation for the instability. That is why it is so important not to confuse emotional charge with emotional readiness. A connection can feel intense and still be fundamentally unstable. A person can think about you, miss you, feel jealous, feel attached, even feel deeply moved by you, and still not have the capacity to show up with steadiness. And when there is no steadiness, your life starts revolving around interpretation instead of relationship. Mixed signals usually mean one of three things. First, the person feels something but not enough to move clearly. Second, the person feels something but not safely enough to sustain it. Third, the person likes the connection in the form that benefits them, but not enough to clarify it in a way that protects you. Those three things can look very different on the inside, but from your side, they often feel almost identical. Warmth followed by distance, availability followed by ambiguity, emotional charge without emotional stability. That is why mixed signals are so dangerous, because they can keep you emotionally engaged without ever really moving the connection forward. You stay in a permanent state of almost closeness, almost clarity, almost something real enough to trust, but never enough to let your body stop bracing. And when someone lives in almost for too long, they usually start abandoning themselves in subtle ways. They lower standards, they tolerate confusion. They make excuses for behavior that would be unacceptable if the chemistry were weaker. They start calling instability complicated love instead of what it is. A pattern does not become healthy just because the feelings inside it are real. I want to take a quick moment to thank everyone who supports Soft Mind. Every cup I share with you, like this Chloe the cat mug, reminds me of how this community grew from one quiet idea into something warm and real. Each Chloe the cat item helps me keep creating these videos, so if you'd like to support the channel, you can grab your own cozy mug at colabbmusic.com. Thank you for being part of this calm space. If the signal keeps changing, the answer is not always hidden deeper. Sometimes the answer is simply that the person is not able, not willing, or not ready to meet you in a consistent way. Another thing mixed signals usually mean is that the person wants the emotional benefits of connection without fully accepting the emotional responsibility of connection. This is more common than people realize. Someone may want your attention, your softness, your availability, your admiration, your emotional energy, your understanding, your comfort, even your loyalty. They may love what your presence gives them. They may genuinely enjoy having access to you, but that does not automatically mean they want the clarity, consistency, exclusivity, honesty, or vulnerability that a real connection would require. So they keep the bond alive just enough to keep receiving what they like from it. Not always in a cruel way, sometimes not even consciously, but the effect is the same. They leave just enough openings to stop the connection from dying, while never stepping into it clearly enough for you to feel secure. That is one of the most common meanings behind mixed signals. Not hidden destiny, not some once-in-a-lifetime unspoken bond, just a person who likes what the connection gives them more than they like the responsibility of handling the connection clearly. And this is why mixed signals can feel so personal, because some of the care is real, some of the attention is real, some of the warmth is real, but it is being offered inside a pattern that still leaves you guessing, waiting, and trying to build meaning out of emotional fragments. That is not clarity. That is intermittent reinforcement. And intermittent reinforcement is one of the most addictive emotional experiences there is. This is also why mixed signals can become stronger after moments of intimacy. People assume intimacy should clear things up, but with inconsistent people, intimacy often deepens confusion instead. Why? Because a meaningful moment creates emotional momentum for you, but not always emotional responsibility for them. You leave the moment feeling closer because something real happened. They may leave the same moment feeling stirred up, but not necessarily committed to acting with more clarity afterward. So now you are carrying the emotional meaning of the experience forward, while they are slipping back into ambiguity. This is why mixed signals after intimacy can feel especially brutal. You are not just confused by someone distant, you are confused by someone who gave you something real enough to matter, then failed to hold it consistently afterward. And that makes people spiral. They think the intimacy must mean more than the distance because the intimacy felt deeper. But that is not how patterns work. The truth of a connection is not measured only by its peak moments. It is measured by what happens after those moments too, by whether the closeness becomes steadiness or whether it collapses back into uncertainty. So when mixed signals intensify after meaningful moments, what it usually means is that the person can participate in emotional connection, but cannot hold that connection in a stable way once it becomes real. That may be tragic, it may be understandable, it may even come from genuine fear, but it still leaves you living in instability. A lot of people think their job is to decode mixed signals accurately enough that the relationship will finally make sense. But mixed signals often become clearer when you stop trying to read the person and start reading the pattern. Does the pattern create peace, or does it create anxiety? Does the pattern become clearer over time or more confusing? Does the pattern move toward consistency, or does it keep cycling through closeness and withdrawal? Does the pattern make you feel chosen, or does it make you feel like you keep having to earn proof that you matter? Those questions reveal far more than late-night analysis ever will, because mixed signals usually mean this person is not showing up in a way that allows love to feel safe. Whatever their reason is, the connection is teaching you vigilance instead of trust. It is teaching you to analyze instead of relax, to monitor instead of receive, to survive emotionally rather than simply relate. And once a pattern starts training you into self-doubt, overfunctioning, and obsessive interpretation, the issue is no longer just what they feel. The issue is what staying inside the pattern is turning you into. That is where mixed signals stop being romantic ambiguity and start becoming emotional erosion. So how do you tell the difference between someone who is genuinely conflicted and someone who is simply keeping you around? You look at whether the pattern is moving anywhere. A conflicted person may be inconsistent for a time, but over time there should be some movement toward truth, more honesty, more accountability, more effort to clarify, more willingness to name what is happening instead of endlessly benefiting from your confusion. Someone who is simply keeping you around often does the opposite. They maintain the emotional gray area because the gray area works for them. It lets them have access without responsibility. It lets them stay connected without having to commit. It lets them enjoy your presence while avoiding the discomfort of choosing clearly. And again, this does not always mean malice. Some people are not scheming. They are just immature, avoidant, emotionally selfish, or too disconnected from their own impact to behave responsibly. But the result still matters. Because if the pattern has gone on long enough that you are exhausted, anxious, hyper-aware, and no closer to real clarity than you were in the beginning, then the meaning of the mixed signals is no longer mysterious. The meaning is that the connection in its current form is not protecting your peace, and that may be the only meaning that actually matters. Here is the deeper truth. Mixed signals usually do not mean you need to understand them better. They usually mean you need to take them more seriously. People often treat mixed signals like incomplete evidence. They think, once I gather enough, I will know what this really is. But mixed signals are evidence. They are evidence of inconsistency, evidence of misalignment, evidence that the other person's behavior is not matching the level of safety, clarity, or steadiness that your heart needs. That does not mean you have to turn cold. It does not mean you have to assume the worst. It does not mean every inconsistent person is a villain. But it does mean you stop treating confusion like a temporary inconvenience on the way to love. Sometimes confusion is the relationship. Sometimes the instability is not blocking the connection, it is the shape of the connection. And that realization changes how you move. Because once you stop waiting for mixed signals to magically become clarity, you start asking better questions. Not, how do I interpret this perfectly? But why am I still trying to build safety out of something that keeps teaching me uncertainty? That question hurts, but it is the beginning of emotional freedom. So, what do mixed signals usually mean? They usually mean the person is not showing up in a clear enough, safe enough, consistent enough way for you to trust what is happening. The motives behind that can vary: fear, immaturity, ambivalence, loneliness, selfishness, emotional conflict, unresolved attachment wounds. But the effect is the same. You are left carrying more confusion than clarity. And love is not supposed to feel like constant interpretation. Real connection may still have uncertainty in the beginning. It may still have nuance. It may still have timing issues and emotional complexity. But over time, real care moves toward clearer signals, not more confusing ones. It makes you feel more settled, not more destabilized. It creates direction, not endless almost. So stop asking only what their mixed signals say about their heart. Ask what the mixed signals are doing to yours. Because even if their feelings are real, a pattern that keeps making you anxious, hypervigilant, and emotionally starved is still a pattern that deserves boundaries, not more excuses. If this episode gave language to something you have been trying to understand, let me know in the comments which part hit the hardest. And if you want more calm, honest conversations about love, attachment, mixed signals, and emotional clarity, subscribe to Soft Mind. Mixed signals do not always mean there is no feeling, but they almost always mean there is not enough clarity for your heart to rest. And that is something you should never minimize.